The very key aspects of our environment, of our reality, that have been intentionally omitted from our education. We live in a continuum of light. Ether spins itself into plasma. Plasma precipitates into gases and then liquids and solids. But on a fundamental level, everything is spun light.
Eileen McKusick, researcher, writer, inventor, practitioner, educator, speaker in the fields of therapeutic sound, the human biofield, and electric health, originator of the sound therapy method, biofield tuning.
It's not woo, it's actually physics. It's all based in physics and science that we understand, or that we're coming to understand. We actually have a biological light body.
Eileen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so happy to have you here.
Nice. My pleasure, Melissa.
Of course. I would love to start out by hearing about your personal journey with your health and what happened in 2010 that changed everything for you.
Well, I had been reading self-help books since 1987, since I was 18 years old. And had bulimia and was doing my best to figure out how to overcome it myself, and discovered that I sort of had an interest and passion for things like science and spirituality, health and human potential, and just kept on going along that path. The path led me to tuning forks in 1996. And I started playing with those with clients that were massage therapy clients that I was doing part-time, and then never stopped playing with them. And in 2006, I started working with them in a more committed way because I moved my work, or it moved itself, from working right over the body to working in the atmosphere around the body, somewhat oddly. And when I started working in the atmosphere around the body, I started getting really dramatic outcomes with my clients, and decided to go to college as an adult to understand what was going on as I was waving tuning forks around people, and why they were saying that they felt less anxious, that they didn't have pain anymore. It was very intriguing and very mysterious. And in 2010, in 2009, I would say I was pretty much at a low point in my life. After investing thousands of dollars, hundreds and hundreds of hours in all kinds of self-help programs, all kinds of things, so many books. I'm a big reader. I've read so many books, but I was still broke. I was still in debt. I was still suffering from a variety of low-grade health issues. I was still fighting with my husband. I wasn't fit and fabulous, like I was promised I was going to be from all the things. And I think a lot of people find themselves in that position, I'm doing all the work, I'm taking all, I'm doing all the things that I'm being told to do, but I'm still stuck, right? And I think that's what most people suffer from to some degree or another, whether you're in physical pain or emotional pain, or you just can't get out of your own way. Most of us are stuck, and I was no exception. But then a few things happened that really changed everything, and led me to the place where I'm now, which I'm so not stuck, thankfully. So one thing was that my son, who was 12 at the time, came to the dinner table one night, and he said, "Did you know there's a fourth state of matter called plasma?" And I was like, solid, liquid, gas. No, somehow I missed the whole state of matter. And so that was very curious. And so I went to the internet and started researching about plasma. And I thought it was very odd. A lot of these descriptions were saying that plasma comprises 99.999% of the universe. And I was like, well, how have I never heard of it if it's makes up everything? So what is plasma? And for those of you that don't know, when I first started talking about this in 2010, 2011, and I'd ask people if they'd ever heard of it, nobody raised their hand, nobody. And we're not talking about blood plasma. Now a lot more people have heard of it, but back then it was like a mystery. And actually, so plasma, what it basically is it's the flow of electric current. And it shows up in lots of different ways. It has different expressions of itself. So lightning is a plasma in arc mode. Northern lights are a plasma. Our atmosphere is actually a plasma. It has electric charge in it. And even our voice, when we speak and waves go through the air, this is like a flow of charge. So plasma is ubiquitous. And what I also discovered at that time is that our body has an electrical system. So we have the plasma state within us. And we don't learn about plasma, we don't learn that our body has an electrical system. Even though most of us are like, oh yeah, my heartbeat's electric, my brain waves are electric, my bones are crystalline, my blood carries a charge. We're like, oh yeah, actually, there is electric current running through me. That's the difference between being alive and being dead, right? So we actually have a biological light body. And to me, this really sealed the bridge between science and spirituality, and this idea that, yeah, I do have a light body, and yeah, it is biological as well. So that was like, I found the light. I'd been looking for the light, and I didn't even know, that I'd been looking for it. And then when I finally found and understood plasma, I stopped reading self-help books. But at the same time, I had my very first group of students. I had some friends and some clients that kind of bullied me into teaching them the Biofield tuning method. And I started to receive sessions myself for the first time in 14 years, and doing this on other people. And as soon as I started to receive Biofield tuning, my health issues started to slowly clear up. And, that was 14 years ago now. I'm not in debt and not in poverty consciousness anymore. It was something I was very trapped in, and I think a lot of us are trapped in. And no pain, no health issues at all, because of my understanding of the body's electrical system, or the biofield, and plasma, and also ether, which is another state of matter that I was introduced to as well. So in the course of my studies, I uncovered 2 additional states of matter and 2 additional forces of nature that we also don't really learn about, right? We learn about entropy, everything's falling apart, but we don't learn about syntropy, like, everything's coming together too. Right? Everything isn't just the second law of thermodynamics falling apart. If that was true, everything would be a soup, right? So things have to come together as well. And we learn about gravity, like everything's pulling us down, but we don't learn about levity. Sound waves fall upward, and that's a very useful input to make use of. So through my own discovery, I found the missing keys to get unstuck. And now I work at sharing them with other people so that they can also get unstuck.
That is so fascinating. I have so many questions just from that. So I went to college in the very early 2000s, like 2000 to 2006, I want to say, something like that. And at the time, they told us that plasma was only something that happened in the stars, in the sun, nothing we needed to worry about. And ether was like this old-fashioned idea that had been tossed out from like very early physics or something like that. And so it's very interesting to see how things have shifted since then.
This holiday season, give yourself the gift of community, connection, and healing by joining Love Covered Life Sanctuary, a safe, nurturing space to support your spiritual journey. Here's what you'll experience: a supportive community with forums and chats to share and connect, a December Acts of Kindness challenge to bring more love into the world, monthly live calls with me for Q&A, deep connection, and spiritual coaching, monthly live events with expert guests to inspire and guide you, always available on replay, and when you join, you get to put in requests for the guests that you want to connect with. After listening to your feedback, I've made this more accessible than ever. I've converted to a pay what you can system, and the lowest tier is only $2.50 a month. This is your moment to invest in you. Step into the new year with support, love, and a spiritual community by your side. Click here to join or check the description box. I can't wait to get to know you and take this journey with you.
Well, you will still find that out there. I mean, there are definitions of plasma that it's only out in space, but there are cold plasmas. There's a whole industry built on all kinds of plasmas. So, so there's a lot of erroneous information. And the whole ether thing is interesting because a lot of that, like it's an antiquated idea that was tossed out, but then they come back in with like the Higgs field, and it's the exact same definition as ether. It's just that some white guy named it after himself, that it follows all of the same descriptions. And even Einstein, who's the one we usually go, oh yeah, Einstein said we didn't need the ether, later redacted that and said that basically a cosmos without ether was unthinkable and unworkable. But nobody pays attention to that redaction. But I will say in more alternative circles, it's becoming more and more clear to people, that we live in a continuum of light, from the most fine, which is the ether spins itself into plasma precipitates into gases, and then liquids and solids. But on a fundamental level, everything is spun light.
That's fascinating. I would love to ask you a little bit more about that because I've heard that from a couple of sources, but I don't fully understand the mechanism behind it. So, is there science to show that everything is spun light?
Well, everything moves in spirals. So when we see a depiction of a sound wave, where we're told sound is a longitudinal wave, but it's always depicted as a sine wave. But really, sound propagates spirally and spherically from its source. Water travels in spirals. Light travels in spirals. Everything travels in spirals, right? And so that's just sort of that's another thing we didn't really learn about in school. We didn't learn about torsion. We didn't learn about spirals, the phi spiral, right? So they're very key aspects of our environment, of our reality, that have been intentionally omitted from our education. Misinformation and keeping us in the dark, right? To me, this realm is a game. It's like hide the light, hide the truth. And so those of us who are curious and obstinate, we get to play the game and go off in search of the truth and the light. And you're not going to find most of it on Google.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned earlier that we have an electrical system in our body. This is something I've just recently started learning about, with people putting out information about how the cell functions like a battery. And I think I heard you talking about how when you have a low charge in your body, that correlates to a low pH. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. Well, voltage and pH are the same. They're just a different system of measurement. So when we become exhausted and we start running on adrenaline, our system becomes more acidic. And when we're rested and charged, we become a little more alkaline. So we want to have an understanding of our body as a battery. So one of the things I always ask people is, on a scale from 1 to 100, where is your inner battery meter at right now? And almost always a number drops in. Did you have a number drop in, Melissa?
Yeah. Like my energy battery of how my energy is feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What was your number?
I would say probably a 7 right now, because I just came from being outside right before this interview, and I feel really recharged when I'm outdoors.
Okay, so 70. The way that, to kind of frame this and the importance of us keeping our voltage up is, imagine you have a manufacturing business and you have 100 employees and only 70 are coming to work each day. Is everything getting done? No. Is any kind of innovation happening? No, so, but if you've got 95, 96, 97 people coming in every day, then everything is really humming. right? And a lot of people, their batteries are around 40, 50. Well, that means that your cells aren't taking out the trash, that you're not rebuilding new cells, that, very vital functioning is not getting done. I would imagine if your battery's at 40, 50, your house is kind of a mess, your car needs to be cleaned, you got piles of clutter around, right? But the more you understand that your electrical system is primary and you feed that, right, through making sure you get enough sleep, that you get sunshine, that you're not holding your breath like so many people do. Most of our life force comes from the plasma atmosphere that we're breathing. Your blood turns bright red when you inhale. That's because it's full of light. It's the light, the charge that is going to your cells. You can go for weeks without food, days without liquids. You only go a few minutes without air. Because that is the primary source of your electrical juice. And my work with the tuning forks is fundamentally about liberating the breath. Because trauma creates tension, and tension creates restriction. And restriction creates resistance in your electrical flow, which makes your voltage drop. So we aim to get you to relax, to breathe more freely, and to start really feeding your light with all the things that charge you up. If you think about doing something and it's like, don't do it if you don't have to, right? If you think about doing something and it's that's going to charge you. And so the more you start tuning into your level of charge and what discharges you and what recharges you, you can start to slowly build your battery capacity. And that's where your potential is. That we all know that we have the potential to be far more than we're actually being. And your potential really lies in that 90 to 100 battery range. When you're up there, you're on top of all your tasks, you're on top of your clutter, you're getting stuff done, you're keeping a sense of humor even in difficult situations. And so it's not a place that you can get to with supplements or celery juice.
Okay, so another question which you may have explained and it just went over my head. So is the electrical system in the body connected to the light body that you've talked about, or is it the same thing?
It's the same thing. So anything that has electrical current running through it has a magnetic field around it. If you look at conventional definitions of the biofield, it's mostly just alluding to the field which may or may not exist, right? There's still reluctant minds unwilling to embrace logic. The human body has to have a magnetic field around it, and you can't separate the electricity that's beating your heart, that's running your brain, from the magnetic field that's around you. It's all one system. So your heartbeat is your biofield, right? And it's all the flow of light. When you're alive, your light is on, your eyes are bright and shiny. When you die, your light goes out, your electrical system. But light can't be created or destroyed, right? Some of us have been present with people or animals when they've died and actually seen a little cloud of light rise up from them. So I would even go so far as to say your electrical system, it's your mind, it's your conscious mind, your thoughts, it's your subconscious mind, your memories, it's your feelings are more magnetic, and then those are their currents moving in your magnetic field. And I would say also that it's what we call our soul. And it's all the same thing. And that whatever experiences you have in a particular lifetime get recorded permanently in your body's electrical system. And so when your soul or your light body or your electrical system leaves your body, it carries that information of that lifetime with it. It's recorded in it. And so then I would say that all of our lifetimes and all of our ancestors' lifetimes are also all recorded in this light system.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I've learned so much just in this first few minutes of talking to you. So let's talk a little bit more about your work with vibration and sound waves. So you started experimenting with this in your massage practice, I believe. And what did you discover using the tuning fork?
Well, I thought when I got this set of tuning forks in 1996, came a little tiny instruction book. It was the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And it said you C in the root chakra and D in the sacral and E and, so on up the body. And so that's what I started doing. And I thought that the note of C would be sort of an objective input. That's what I expected. What I didn't expect and what I discovered was that when I activated the fork and I held it over the body, it acted like sonar. And as the sound bounced off the body, it came back with information. So as I moved it around the body, it sounded different in different places. Some places it would go really loud. Some places the sound would disappear very quickly. Some places it would sound like it was full of static. And I remember working on a fellow who had a sore shoulder, and I held the fork over his shoulder that hurt, and it sounded really sharp. And then I held it over the shoulder that didn't hurt, and it just sounded normal. So I went back and I just kept holding it over the shoulder that sounded funny until it didn't sound funny anymore. And then he got up and he rotated his shoulder. He's like, oh my God, all pain is gone. Now, neither one of us had any expectation of that happening, right? It wasn't the placebo effect. I wasn't intending it. He wasn't expecting it. We were just experimenting. So that was really intriguing. So I developed this practice of finding spots that sounded funny and staying in them until they didn't sound funny anymore. And then finding other spots that were loud. And I made this very curious observation that I could stick a fork in a loud spot and do what I call click, drag, and drop. So I could use it like a magnetic stylus. I figured if it was going to be loud anywhere, it probably shouldn't be loud over the shoulder. It should be loud over the energy center. And so I'd stick the fork in the loud spot and drag it to the middle and then sort of drop it there. And then it would be loud there and it wouldn't be loud here. And people would say, wow, I feel really centered. And so that was my practice for a long time, was just finding these loud spots over the body and dragging them to the middle, and pretty consistent in what people were reporting. But back in Connecticut in the 90s, when I told people I was doing sound healing with tuning forks, they were very rude to me, very skeptical, very dismissive. And, believe me, I know that tuning forks and energy healing sounds like super woo. Like somebody said to me once, all the woo stuff out there, what you do comes across as the most woo. And I was like, oh God, it's not woo. It's actually physics. It's all based in physics and science that we understand, or that we're coming to understand. Well, for a long time, I was searching sound is magnetic on the internet, I'm like, why does a vibrating tuning fork have magnetic properties? And it wasn't until just a few years ago that some studies came out that were like, sound is magnetic. I was like, oh God, okay, I thought so. But Google won't tell you that, right? That's something that you have to really know how to dig for, to find. So that was all interesting, but not interesting enough to make me want it to be a vocation, because I didn't like the way people reacted to it. You do. I'm like, I don't want to tell you. Right. You're just going to be mean to me. But then, like I said, in 2006, I found a loud spot 2.5 feet away from someone, but completely by accident. And when I brought it to the center, this person had a radical reduction, an elimination of persistent symptoms that nobody else had been able to treat. So that was intriguing. And then I started exploring the field around the body, and I discovered that it had a very specific anatomy and physiology that was the same from person to person. That became what we call the Biofield anatomy map, and that's discussed in depth in both of my books. And so that's what students learn. They learn the Biofield anatomy map and how to do field adjustments with tuning forks, because magnetic fields guide and inform electric currents. And so what we do is we shift the way electricity is flowing through the body by manipulating the magnetic field.
Okay, that's fascinating. Then based on what you were just explaining to me previously, I could make a guess and say that with the tuning forks, you just said you're manipulating the magnetic field. So you're changing the flow of energy, or the flow of blocked electricity or something like that?
Looking for the perfect gift for a loved one this holiday season, or for yourself perhaps? I'm excited to announce my 2 most beautiful paintings of my mystical experiences and pre-birth memories. Number 1 is Music of the Light, my best effort to put the music and light and geometry and math and color and love and peace and bliss that I experienced in the light into a visual representation. Painting number 2 is The Joy of Being. This is my best portrayal of Jesus in the Garden of Light, laughing with the pure joy of being, bathed in the brilliance of the divine light of the other side. Each of these pieces captures a deeply personal spiritual experience that is shared by so many who have experienced these things. So if you want a visual representation of your spiritual experiences or of the near-death experience stories that you've heard, these paintings are designed to bring the mystery and the magic of the other side into your space. Check here for the link or find it in the description box or go to lovecoveredlife.com.
Yeah. I mean, we all get into bad habits mentally and emotionally. But just for an example, I discovered that everybody who came in to see me, and at this point I've seen thousands and thousands of people, everybody who came in to see me with right hip issues had a tendency towards what I call busy mind, busy body. And their mind was always going in their to-do list, and it's kind of a guilt-driven overdoing, overthinking. And what that does, because it's an imbalance, is it's in this model, your body is inside your mind and not the other way around. So the magnetic field extends about 6 feet around us, about a foot or 2 above and below, and it's bounded by a plasma membrane. So it's literally a bubble, or technically a torus, because it has a central channel. And so this field is where all of our memories are stored. So this is what I discovered in mapping it, that as we generate information, it moves away from us. So I find memories that happen recently close to the body. I find things that happened a long time ago further away. So if you're 60, I'm going to find memories that were generated when you were 30, about 3 feet away from your body. And same with if I'm working on a 10-year-old, I'm going to find memories that were generated when they were 5, about 3 feet away from the body. So hard drive's the same size, but as we age, we just fill it up with data. And this is all stored in standing waves in a very specific format. So in the model of the body being inside the mind, when the mind goes out of balance, it pulls the body out of balance. And so the tendency to overthink and to overdo actually energizes the area off our right hip. So we start to increase the magnetic current in that area through that imbalanced activity. And what it does is it draws the electricity in the body over there, because the magnetism is drawing the electricity. Then you end up with pain being too much current running through those wires. And so we find that mental tendency in the magnetic charge, click into it, drag it to the center and drop it, and then the electricity finds its way. But it isn't, I have to also train you to not keep doing that with your mind, because otherwise you're just going to have to keep coming back to me to sort you out, and I don't want to do that. I want to teach you how to recognize, oh, you're getting that right hip twinge. What were you doing? Oh, I was thinking about my to-do list and all the things I got to do. Well, stop that. Come back into this moment. Breathe into now. Set aside specific planning time where you do think about the future, but don't just randomly be running this energy all the time, because you're not the central channel. This isn't being in the now. This is where we all want to be. We want to be present without ants in our pants, be able to be free to be curious, playful, and relaxed and alert, right? This is the whole aim of sound healing, is to just get the ants out of your pants so that you can just spread out into the moment and be okay. Right? So a big part of biofield tuning is mind training as well, to keep you in balance so that you don't have to keep getting help to get put back.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. That is speaking to me right now, because that is something that I need to work on. I get so focused, so driven, constantly going through my mind. What's my next goal? What's my next plan? And when I hear you saying spread out into the moment, it's like, it's so soothing even just to hear those words.
Yeah, I trust my future self. Like, My future self has got this, so I can enjoy now. Now is all we've got. You know what I mean? Make a nice cup of tea, get cozy, enjoy now. Right? It's all so fleeting, and we spend so much time in froth in our own little unnecessary tempests and teapots when that peace that you seek is already there. You just need to settle down into it.
Right. So tell us about the first time that you did distance healing.
Sure. Well, people asked me for years if I could do biofield tuning at a distance. And I always said no. And I was arrogant about it. I was like, that's dumb. Like, this is sound waves on the body, people. Like, how would I do it at a distance? Right. I mean, I'm an arrogant skeptic. You know, if anybody gets arrogant and skeptical about my work, I'm like, that's okay. I mean, you couldn't be more arrogant and skeptical than I was. And so, but I'm also a scientist and I like experiments. And so I have a friend, allopathic doctor by the name of Dr. Carl Merritt, who has an office in California. And he helped me with my master's thesis and my first book. And he said, hey, Eileen, you want to try doing this at a distance? And I was like, sure, let's give it a go. So, and I had no investment in this, right? If anything, I was like kind of invested in the idea where I'd been defending that it wasn't possible. So he lay down on his treatment table in California, and I approached my table in Vermont. We had no open line of communication. We weren't on the phone or Zoom or anything. We were just connecting by intention. Now, when a client lays down on my table, I have a process. It's sort of like dropping a needle on an album and reading the vibrational record of someone's life. There's a whole language of vibration, and all of those difficult things, that divorce you had at 30, are all vibrationally encoded in this very pure language. It's actually the same from animals and plants and people. There is a universal language of vibration that the forks have taught me. And because it shows up in the overtones and undertones as it interfaces with the body's emissions. I'm able to hear sadness. I'm able to hear anger. Like, oh, that's a breakup. That's a car accident. It's like a sonic braille that I really understand very well. And so I set out and started going through his field, and totally to my amazement, all the same field of energy and information that shows up when a person is on the table showed up. And I was able to read it and adjust it. And I went through his whole field, and I took notes. And then I got on the phone with him and I went through my notes, and I'm able to read things with a lot of accuracy. You know, I was like, okay, you had some really stressful years, you know, at this age, and you've got inflammation in this part of your body, and this organ isn't quite working right, and your head injury when you're 5, your mom has this personality, blah, 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 and so on, right? And he said, Eileen, all of that is exactly correct. And I experienced a state change while you were working on me. I feel lighter, and I tested my resting blood sugar before and after, and there's definitely a difference. And I was like, wow, okay, now I have to eat crow because I guess it is possible. How's it possible? I don't know. I certainly didn't know then. And then, so then the next one I did with my friend Brendan Murphy, who lived at the time in Australia. I'm like, okay, it works in California, will it work all the way to Australia? And same thing, it did. And so then I started doing distance sessions, and I kept doing them without an open line of communication. And previously, when I had people on the table in front of me, I could say, okay, I'm around 13, something here really sad, you know, what does that mean to you? And they'd be like, oh, that's when my dog died, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't have them to ask those questions. So I had to learn to listen even deeper and really tease out the nuances of the sound. You know, there's a specific sound that if you asked to go to the bathroom in first grade and the teacher wouldn't let you, and you peed at your desk, like there's a very specific spot in the field, there's a very specific sound. And I've uncovered that and said that to people. They're like, how the hell do you know that? I'm like, it's not intuition, it's actually a scientific method at this point, because this is very predictable and repeatable, these sounds and locations and what they mean. So now, of course, you know, everybody's trained in biofield tuning to do tuning at a distance, and we're just wrapping up a study with 100 volunteers. 65 of them received 5 biofield tuning sessions at a distance over Zoom to treat clinical anxiety. And then we have a control group of 35 people. So, you know, it works. It works, and it's a hypothesis. It's been tested hundreds of thousands of times by thousands of people, and the results are absolutely repeatable.
That's incredible. You mentioned that at the time you first experienced this, you weren't sure how it worked, but now you have a better idea. How do you think that the process is like for?
Have you ever had like a new lover or a lover and you all of a sudden you catch their vibe,
Yeah.
and then you get a text from them, right?
Yeah.
How
Things,
does that work?
synchronicities all the time.
Yeah. How does that work? Can you explain the science to me of how that works?
No,
You care at the end of the day?
I'm interested in it, but no, I'm glad that it happens.
Yeah, because we're connected to each other. We're antenna. And we broadcast and receive signals, and we are on the same wavelength as people that we care and love about, and we feel their vibe when they're vibing us and we're vibing them, right? So it's the same mechanism. It's resonance in the ether. And if everything is fundamentally ether, it's all one thing. It's totally self-aware of everything. It's all one thing. Again, the ground state of reality is essentially this liquid light that spins itself into the hologram that we live in. And so if I can go on the internet and you and I can edit a Google Doc, right, in real time. You're accessing it from there, I'm accessing it. We're just tuning in together through a medium of connectivity, and we're able to resonate. and it's really the same principle as that feeling of connection. The same mechanism that enables you to feel your loved one enables you to feel a Biofield tuning session. When we have consent, right? I mean, we don't ever work on anyone. I would never tune into you and work on your field without your consent. There needs to be an open door, right? And that's why you only feel your loved ones thinking about you and not random strangers, because your antenna isn't tuned in that way. So resonance in the ether. I mean, some people will call it quantum entanglement. I just don't think quantum is a useful concept at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, I really like your point about the internet. Even what we're doing right now, where we're not physically near each other, but we can see each other and talk to each other like we're in the same room. That could be a really good model to understand something like quantum entanglement.
Yeah. I mean, the trouble with this whole quantum conversation is, what does quantum mean, Melissa? How would you describe the word quantum?
The science having to do with subatomic particles, maybe?
Yeah, how does that relate to healing?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, you look it up as like very tiny. Okay, very tiny. I don't even believe in particles. Just everything is waves. And the whole quantum entanglement leaves out the connective medium. I mean, you can call it quantum foam or 0-point field or whatever. Let's just call it ether. The classical term, it fits the bill.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So with your vibrational healing method, have you found that there are certain physical ailments that respond better to it? Are there some things that don't respond as well?
Yeah. So basically what we're working with is the body's electrical system. We're working with the rhythms, right? So anxiety is a rhythmic disorder. And so we're able to help the body. The tuning fork is like a metronome. It's just a steady beat, and so our bodies are fundamentally self-tuning. So I use the tuning forks like a mirror. I comb them through the field until I find an area of distortion. I can hear that. If it's really extreme, you'll hear it. And there'll be a sense of resistance. So that's a place in your electrical system where the rhythm's off and the flow isn't flowing. And so we stay there like a mirror. We reflect it back to the body. We're like, hey, body, kind of wonky over here, right? So what do? Let's say you haven't seen yourself in a mirror for a while and you get to one, your hair is a mess, and you have a poppy seed in your teeth. Like, what do?
You fix it.
You fix it. You put yourself in order, right? We groom ourselves. We're like, oh, I got to put myself back in order. Well, your body's organizing intelligence does the exact same thing. We hold up a mirror of a place where it's out of whack. So not only are we giving it a mirror, but we're also giving it a steady rhythm and a steady tone to tune and adjust itself to. So we, as Biofield tuning practitioners, are more like technicians than anything. It's just our job to kind of find these places that are off energetically, rhythmically, and then reflect out to the body. And the body corrects itself, and then we just move on to the next one. We're not healing you. We're creating an environment where your body can reorder itself. Health is a state of order, of organization, coherence, right? So things that are rhythmic or tonal or tension based, depression responds really well. Mild to moderate. We don't work with anything that's severe. Anxiety, fears, and phobias. Any kind of general stuckness is usually just a wiring issue. We have this sense of like, oh, I want to do something different. And then, the conscious mind is like, and then the unconscious mind just keeps on flowing along the wiring that's already there. So another thing that I call this is bioelectricians, is we actually help to rewire the body and help get you out of these eddies that you're stuck in that go nowhere, and just bring everything back and instead of reboot you into a neutral zone so that then you can move forward more freely. So energetic things, psychosomatic pain. A lot of people's pain is emotional and energetic. I got an MRI, there's nothing wrong there, but I'm in pain. Oh, well, left shoulder. Oh, lose anyone close to you recently? Oh, my husband died a year and a half ago. I can't get over it. Oh, that's why your left shoulder hurts, because that's where you're accumulating that sadness in your magnetic field. It's drawing electricity over there. You got too much voltage. It's heavy, right? I come in with a tuning fork. I'm like, oh, wow, my shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. Classic example of psychosomatic pain. But when we get into things like pathologies, diagnosed pathologies, cancer, any kind of disease of the tissue, that kind of goes out of our wheelhouse a little bit. Biofield tuning can be useful as part of a team approach to things like that. But, when you get into a deep physical pathology, there's deficiencies, there's drainage issues, there's a lot going on. And so it's really important to have a multimodal approach to those kinds of things. Not that we're not helpful, because it's with biofield tuning, it really kind of shines a mirror on your underlying emotional and mental tendencies that gave rise to this pathology in the first place. And it can be really useful for understanding that we aren't curing cancer or getting rid of MS or Parkinson's. We can diminish symptoms, but when disease sets itself solidly in the body, it's kind of gone out of our wheelhouse. What it's really good for is prevention and also performance. So many athletes that we've worked with will come back and be like, I just played the best game of golf of my life, or I just shaved, X minutes off of my run, or, I was able to jump higher, or whatever. As we release tension and bring people into a flow state, they improve their performance in everything, musicians, singers, so it's not just about healing, but it's also about helping you to achieve your potential, which because after a while of healing, you kind of get all your healing done. And then you're like, okay, now what, right?
Right. So can people kind of get a similar effect to what you're doing with a tuning fork by being intentional about the vibrations that they surround themselves with? And the reason I ask this question is because I find for myself, when I am near my cats, one of my cats, when they're purring, like when I get my face right up next to them, or if I'm outside near the crickets when they come out at night, or even if I'm doing like Om chanting with that vibration, I can feel my body just relaxing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those things. Cats' purrs are healing. That's been documented. Night sounds are wonderful. If you took any of us out of whatever urban environment we're in and plunked us in a mountain meadow with songbirds and bees and trickling water and no Wi-Fi, and then plopped a few friends down together and some great soundtracks to sing together or some to do together, we'd all feel way, 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 way better. Way better, right? I mean, I live in an urban environment. I have F-35s that fly over. I live in an apartment building full of Wi-Fi. I'm on my devices too much. Right? We're all like that. We're all kind of drowning in man-made electromagnetic waves that are signal jammers to us connecting to nature and the cosmos. And we wonder why we feel bad. A man-made electromagnetic radiation puts a hurting on all of our systems. And if we're strong and resilient and our battery is 80 or over, then we're probably managing it. But that's another thing, is when your voltage drops, your shields go down. Your battery, the stronger your battery, the stronger the magnetic bubble that you're in, the greater resilience you have to stressors and toxins in your environment. When people go down below 40, they become really intolerant of their Wi-Fi and all of this stuff because it's a continual stressor on us. So the more that we can avail ourselves of good, natural, wholesome, healing, useful sounds, the better we're going to be. I mean, it's my constant exposure to coherent sound that keeps my battery high.
Wonderful. So aside from having a sound healing session, what we've just talked about with surrounding ourselves by healing sounds, what are some other practical steps that people can do to raise their voltage and keep their energy level high?
I don't know if you happened to see this meme that made the rounds a while ago, but it said that authenticity is a much stronger energy than peace.
Oh, I love that.
Right? And for whatever reason, well, there's lots of reasons. Many people struggle to simply be authentic, to be real, to say what they mean, to be the same with everyone, to express themselves, to advocate for themselves, to say no when they mean no, to say yes when they mean yes, to say I love you when they want to say I love you, right? A tremendous amount of energy goes into holding ourselves back. And in my observation, for example, most of the people probably all the people I've worked with who've had fibromyalgia have this very strong habit of holding themselves back, holding back their emotions, holding back their anger, holding back their words, holding back their feelings, they're holding themselves back. That's what most people are suffering from, is this whole holding yourself back. The number one way to raise your voltage is to be authentic and to not hold yourself back. And that doesn't equate to being a rude bitch, because you can be kind, diplomatic, funny, you can be authentic and not be offensive. So I think a lot of people in their mind automatically equate authenticity with offensiveness. That's childish thinking. You're an adult. You know how to be savvy. Just let yourself be real. And I'll tell you what, for me, living authentically has been a consequence of my work with the tuning forks and just kind of seeing how people hold themselves back. And then, I've received thousands of sessions at this point. So I would just invite you to experiment with being real. And, this is what I want to say. People love it that I'm authentic. They just love it. You think, I'm going to be offensive. No, it's very attractive, actually. Authenticity, audacious authenticity, right? And if people can't handle you, then you don't need them around. Just surround yourself with the people who appreciate you being real. You'll always know where you stand with me. If I'm pissed at you, I'm going to tell you. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be passive aggressive about it. I'm not going to beat around the bush, right? So we feel safer with people who are authentic. So I would say that's the number one thing, and I would say also, be selfish, take care of you. In my organization, I've got about 30 people that work with me, and I've had to condition them all because they're all type A, hardworking personalities. And you put yourself first, and then your family, and then work. And if you do it in that order, then you show up to work ready to work. So being selfish doesn't mean that you're not taking care of the people in your life. It means that you're taking care of them better because you're making sure your needs are met. I mean, we all know the people who give and give and give from an empty cup until they fall over with their martyr story. It's not necessary. You just switch the order. Put yourself first. Fill your own cup. Do what feels good to you. Say no. And if you've been a people pleaser and accommodator and holding yourself back and all of this, and your voltage is really low, and you start switching it up, you're going to feel guilty. You're going to encounter guilt. Okay? Just keep going. And then you get over that. Right? Don't let the guilt stop you. And then everyone will adjust to your new MO and your battery meter will go up.
Yeah, that is such a good point about authenticity being the best way to raise your energy. I had never thought about that before, and another point that you made about how so many people associate being authentic with being rude, like they're one and the same thing. But no, you can be authentically loving to yourself and others. And then when you're living in your flow and in what feels right, what you're called to be doing, then you naturally raise your vibration because you're happy, you're at peace.
Yeah. Although I don't use the phrase raise your vibration. And I'll explain why. So, as a sound healer, sound therapist, and as an author, I'm super picky about the words that we choose to describe the experiences that we have. So, this idea of raising your vibration automatically assumes that low vibrations are bad and high vibrations are good. Okay? The cosmos consists of every wavelength imaginable, like these impossibly low vibrations and these incredibly high vibrations. And they're all God. They're all nature. They're all alive in us. The high ones aren't better than the low ones. Right? What we want to do is not this idea that we somehow need to go up. This is very hierarchical. This like, oh, I've got to try to raise my vibration. That's not what happens. As we heal, as we raise our voltage, as we become more whole, we become in tune. We clarify our signal. We're already beautiful just the way we are. We're just out of tune. We're all like Stradivariuses that have been terribly mishandled. And most of us can be repaired and brought back into a greater state of harmony. When our signal becomes more clear and our voltage goes up, our field expands. We expand in every direction. Yes, there is an element of going up as we, there's a feeling of lift. There is an element of up, but there's also an experience of out, and there's an experience of down. We actually become more grounded and more present here in 3D. We're not changing dimensions as we heal. There's no trying to vibrate up to 5D. That's fantasy. That's setting yourself up for failure. Right? Because authentically, some days you're not going to be vibing high, and that's okay. Right? So when we're trying to vibe high and we have a tired, fussy, irritable day, then we get upset with ourselves because we're not love and light. There's this whole new age nonsense that's programmed people into thinking they need to be Christ or Buddha-like. You don't. You get to be human. You get to have fussy days. You get to be angry at you know what I mean? Like all the emotions, the whole experience of being human. You don't need to be love and light all the time. You can be real and still be lovable. But the thing is that the more clarified your signal becomes, the better your spirits become. You become lighter. I would say the biggest thing that people experience is a sense of lightness, right? It's not vibing higher. It's just being lighter, being clearer, and being more in tune, right? So do you see the difference between like raising your vibration versus just like getting your beautiful vibration, all the lows, all the highs, everything in this nice tonal sweet spot that you play from?
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining that. I would love to ask you, what role do you see this knowledge and this work that you're doing playing in the overall expansion of consciousness of humanity?
That's a great question. Well, it already has been. I mean, Tuning the Human Biofield's been out for 10 years now, and I know that it's informed a lot of people in the way that they look at it. When people read Tuning the Human Biofield or Electric Body, Electric Health, they're like, it's like a light came on. And, once you start looking at life through the electric lens, everything gets brighter. And you start looking at your health and taking care of your electric health as opposed to your chemical, mechanical health. Just for an example, I went through menopause, discovered that what I really needed was to be grounded, right? Because as women, every month we release charge. Our blood carries charge. We release that charge down in the earth. We discharge, right? And now all of a sudden we're not discharging, and charge is building up, and heat is building up, and inflammation is building up. You're hot flashes and swelling and all of this stuff. It's electrical. And so I started wearing leather-soled moccasins back in 2016. There weren't any of the cute earthing shoes that there are now. And I wore them for 2 years. And I peed outside whenever I could. And I never once in the process of going through menopause, the word hormone never entered my mind. right, and deal with hormones. Because when you're working at the level of electrical flow and rhythms, that is what generates hormones. It's fundamental and generative of it. So if you get your electrical system in order, your hormones sort themselves out. So, viewing health, whatever health is ailing you through an electric lens makes it easier to solve. Right? I didn't solve any of my problems until I understood electricity in the body. And then I was like, now if I work on that level then and get that sorted out, then everything sorts itself out from there. So I have a friend who does a practice called energetic osteopathy. She's a trained osteopath. And when she read my book, she started changing her practice from just working on the body to using her hands in the field and doing field adjustments with her hands, and started getting way more powerful outcomes with her clients. So that's just one person that I know of who has taken this idea of opening us up to magnetic fields, right? Because science is starting to get hip to electricity in the body more. A woman named Sally Addy wrote a book called We Are Electric, and she talks at length about all the ways that they're discovering electricity in the body. She never once mentions magnetic fields. And I've been at consciousness conferences where everybody's like, the brain, electricity in the brain. And I ask a question like, so what about the magnetic fields? Crickets, right? And to me, the magnetic is the feminine, it's the emotional, right? And so that is suppressed in our culture in favor of the masculine, the electric, the mental. So there's a whole sort of awakening of the power of the feminine and the magnetism and the role that emotions play in our health and well-being that people are just beginning to wake up to. And the fact of the matter is that fundamentally nobody really needs to get sick. If everybody had tuning just be part of their well visits, like, go get your regular tunings, and we'd be able to keep everyone in a coherent state. There's a lot of maladies that people are suffering from that they're being put on drugs for life that we can correct in 3 sessions. So it changes the whole healthcare. It's actually a very disruptive technology. I've had many people say to me, I got more out of 3 sessions with you than I did in years of therapy. Well, that eliminates a lot of jobs. Right? So there's a lot. I have another client who was supposed to get a surgery for a stent in his heart. His heart was acting weird. And I go in and I discover, his mother has always been needy. And this guy has been taking care of his mother since he was a little kid. And his mother spot in his field is tied into his heart and it's pulling him down. And I went in and freed it all up and released it and got everything flowing the way it was. And he didn't need a surgery anymore. And his surgeon got really mad at me.
Oh, wow. You would think they would be celebrating.
No, doctors often don't want to know, and they're like, wow, you healed so fast. How did you do that? Oh, well, I was using my sonic slider tuning fork. And they're like, they're not like, wow, I really want to know more about that. It's not the mindset, because it's very much a paradigm, right? So what we're really at here is the edge of a paradigm shift. In this age of Aquarius and this age of waves, we're coming to understand the wave nature of reality and treating waves with waves in order to bring about coherence. Once the light comes on in people, it never goes off. And so I kind of have this feeling like we're moving to a place where all of a sudden, for whatever was going to make it happen, the light is going to come on and people will understand and see that this is a much easier way of looking at life and health. I don't think it's that far down the road.
What do you think that it will take for us to get there?
Well, I think that we're already there in a lot of ways. For me, doing this for 28 years now, I don't encounter skepticism anymore. When I meet people and I start talking to them about it, people's minds are way more open. People are not as hoodwinked by the current system, and its promises that it doesn't really come through on. So people are becoming dissatisfied with what is being offered to them. They're seeing that it often doesn't work or creates more problems than it solves. And they're openly casting about for other alternatives. The thing about sound that I think that makes it so accessible is that pretty much everyone is already a sound healer, but they just don't realize it. So like, Melissa, do you have a musical playlist?
Yes, absolutely.
And do you choose certain types of sounds to make you
Yep.
sleepy or to make you active? Right? People already understand the power of sound. And well, how could it work through Zoom? I don't know. Have you ever seen a video that made you cry? Like,
Oh, yeah.
sound moves us, whether it's coming through our microphone or whether it's coming from a tuning fork being waved right over you. Sound moves us. And we know this. And, do we ever ask, like, well, what was the mechanism of that woman singing that song that made me cry? Tell me the science behind why that music moved me. And we don't, just like, right, the science of like why my lover is vibing me at the moment and I'm feeling it. We don't ask. And it's so sound healing is based in these things that we already know. We don't need the science to tell us because we know that music moves us. We know it. Right? So, and we use it. We're all already attuned to how sound makes us cringe or makes us open. It's either destructive or creative and constructive. And these are all known. So I just invite people to just like rest in their own knowing of the power of sound because they use it almost every day.
Wonderful. So for people who are listening who want to move forward with this, first of all, can you purchase like a tuning fork to use at home, or is it really important to have an appointment?
Oh, you can definitely use them at home. I created a fork called the Sonic Slider, which is a weighted tuning fork that has this very lovely vibration that you never get tired of. There's something so universally appealing about this particular frequency. It's 93.96 hertz. And you can use it on your body. You can slide it like dry brushing. You slide the handle on you and it gets everything moving. We've done Sonic Slider challenges where people do it on themselves every day for a month and send us their before and after pictures, and you see so much light emerge in people and just like this glow that people get. And so that can help with all kinds of things. I recently did a virtual class on Sonic Slider for first aid. You can use it on bug bites. I was just at camp last week, Spirit of Music camp. I got some bug bites. They're a little itchy, and I put my Sonic Slider on them once or twice. Itch just goes away. Same with bee stings, indigestion, all kinds of stuff. The body just really likes this vibration, and it uses that metronome to just bring itself back in a rhythm and sort itself out. So you can do it that way. I have some videos on how to use tuning forks on yourself, both the weighted ones and the unweighted ones. Even just sitting and listening to one, it brings you into that one-pointed awareness. It's like temple bells or gongs or bowls or chant. Well, it's all for this purpose of creating this one-pointed awareness. It's funny because my husband he doesn't race, but he likes to go to track day and ride his motorcycle 150 miles an hour on the track. And he said to me, when I'm in that place, like I can't think of anything else. I'm so present. I have a brother who's a world-class spear fisherman. He said the same thing to me when I'm down in the water and I'm hunting fish. I'm so present. You don't have to dive to the bottom of the ocean and race 150 miles an hour to get to that presence. You can just sit and activate a tuning fork and just listen to the sound as it decays. And it captures all of your attention and brings you into this moment. So it can be that simple, just sitting and meditate as an augmentation to meditation. But certainly, if you're pretty stuck, it's important to get help. So, lots of people are like, oh, I want to fix it myself. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Can you do it yourself? I'm like, can you get yourself a foot rub? Well, you can, but wouldn't you rather have somebody else do it, right? And so I always recommend just, sign up for 3 sessions. Give yourself the experience of 3 sessions. And many people find that can just be very transformational. You just get lighter. And when you're not trapped in your heavy emotional baggage and it's been alchemized and liberated, that feeling of lightness permeates your whole life. Right? And that's a hard thing to give to yourself through this. So I would invite that. I also have a lot of recordings at our website that I've made over the years that are affordable and many people find helpful. So those are also an option. I was looking at a bunch of free ones there on the website, and I have 22 free tunings on YouTube, my Sonic Sunday series, and there's a handful of other ones. So there's lots of free resources out there for you to try, but then, plenty of other ones that work on the brain or the vagus nerve or reset your adrenal rhythm or, brighten all your energy centers. There's lots of different options there to try out.
And where can people go to find out more about you, to find these different videos that you've put out, or to buy your books or anything else?
So biofieldtuning.com, and that also lists all of our classes. We have a very highly rated educational program, probably the most expensive sound healing program out there. And I have the most expensive tools too. Like my tuning forks are extremely high quality and vetted by me, who is extremely picky. And, people get interested in sound healing and then they go buy cheap tuning forks on Amazon. They're not sound healing tools. They're junk. So, if you're like, oh, this sounds really cool, sound healing, invest in the good training, invest in the good tools. You buy cheap tools, you go to cheap training, that's what you get. And we pride ourselves in offering the highest quality of everything. So biofieldtuning.com, and then is just my name. If you go to YouTube and search my name, you'll find my channel, and there's lots of information there if you want to learn more. And then our books, we sell our books, and Amazon sells our books, so they're also on Audible.
Wonderful. I'll have all those links in the show notes. So I just have 3 final quick questions that I ask all my guests. The first one is, what is your deepest passion?
My deepest passion is liberating people's greatness and being able to witness that. I freaking love seeing the lights come back on in people. In the classes that I teach, I've had the good fortune of going from one event to another where I facilitate people's light coming back on. I think one of the hardest things for us to do is really shine. But when we shine, we're all so freaking beautiful. And so that is liberating people's light, liberating their potential, and seeing that transformation. I have 11 teachers that teach my method with me. And I've watched every single one of them become more embodied, more empowered, more illuminated, more playful, healthier over the years that they've been doing this. Same with my office team. I have an incredibly coherent, healthy bunch of people around me who walk the talk of this kind of lifestyle. And that feels good. I think we all want to help people. I think we all have the drive in us to help people, because helping people makes us feel good. And having found a way to really help people in a way that's sort of unusual has been super gratifying.
That's beautiful. What is your highest joy?
Singing with other people.
I love that.
Yeah.
And finally, if you could give one message to every person on the planet, what would it be?
Believe in the greatness that you know that you are. I've seen in everyone I've ever worked with, when we get the noise out of the signal and we amplify those true tones underneath, that everyone is great, brilliant, beautiful, uniquely gifted, and amazing. Like everybody is. And when I reflect back to people, whatever their own special gift is, whatever their own amazing beauty is, they always look at me shyly and say, I knew that. You know it. You know that it's there. So believe in it, and believe in your gifts, and make it your strongest intention to realize your gifts and to give them to the world. Believe in yourself and believe that you can get there. And we need you to get there. So figure it out.
Wonderful. Eileen, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. To the viewers, don't forget to check the description box for Eileen's links. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you for watching the Love Covered Life podcast. I'd like to invite you to subscribe if you love this video. Your likes, comments, and shares are so appreciated to help boost this video in the algorithm. If you're looking for deeper connection and support, you can join my Pay What You Can online safe haven community space, Love Covered Life Sanctuary, for as little as $2.50 a month. It's the best way to financially support this podcast. You can also shop my paintings and my merch at lovecoveredlife.com. My paintings are my best attempt to put my spiritual, mystical, pre-birth memories and experiences into a visual representation so people can experience them along with me. And all of my merch is vegan, cruelty-free, non-toxic, and sustainably produced using organic materials renewable energy, and ethical practices. If you're feeling stuck and overwhelmed in life, my course Alchemy is your step-by-step guide to a spiritual awakening into heart-based consciousness and manifesting the life you love. Finally, check out my other YouTube channel, Melissa Denise, where I share my own insights and teachings, and you can also find the audio version of this podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and Apple Music. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and thank you for watching.